This is our special edition live stream tonight. I'm Tom Kessenich. He's Darik Buchar, and we are going to be previewing and showcasing the NFFC postseason contest that
Heck
starts
yeah.
in 2 days. Got a record $150,000 grand prize. We've actually got two of these things this year. The big one's got a $150,000 grand prize. We got a postseason mini contest that's got a $50,000 grand prize. So tonight, what we want to do on this special edition of the High Stakes Fantasy Network live stream is preview these contests. Darik and I are going to talk about these contests. We're going to share some of our lineups that we're running in an internal contest that we play. We've only got one lineup apiece in this internal contest, but we'll share these lineups that we play in this contest, talk about some tips, some strategies that maybe you can use in the big contest that will help you win these grand prizes, because this is a great contest. It's got a multiplier format unlike anything in the fantasy industry. I guarantee you folks, if you haven't played in this contest, you really need to sign up for it because it's unlike anything in the industry. I'm going to turn this over to him in a second, but I can, spoiler alert, it's his favorite contest that we run in the NFFC. He'll tell you that in a second, but it's a lot of fun. You'll have a great time playing in it. Again, it starts in 2 days. Both of these contests are going to sell out. So if you haven't signed up already at playnffc.com, you really need to do it right now. Get in, start setting that winning lineup because it is going to be a lot of fun. Darik, I'm going to turn it over to you right now because, again, this contest, it's a great time, isn't it?
Oh, it's like you said, it's my favorite. It is my favorite. I pretend like it's always in my top three because I don't want to slight other of our great contests, but I love this. I think it's just we're all such football guys, and when it gets down to it, the NFL playoffs are awesome. I mean, especially what we got treated to last year. If we come even close to that, it's going to be sensational again. So again, you mentioned how great this contest is, how unique it is based on our multiplier format. You aren't going to find that anywhere else. You're going to find plenty of other NFL playoff season contests if you look hard enough, but a lot of them are strictly best ball. You make no changes. You set a lineup, you're done. This gives you just the strategy here is just completely different. You mentioned, we have the two contests. We have one with a $200 entry, $150,000 grand prize, pays down 45 slots or so. And then the mini you mentioned, which is a $50 entry, which has gone up from last year, from $40 to $50 entry, but the grand prize actually went from $20,000 to $50,000. So you're going to win a lot more bang for your buck. We don't pay down as many prizes in the mini. I think we pay down 14 or 15 spots, and that's just because we have that $50,000 prize at the top now. So it's a little more top heavy, but it's also not quite as expensive. So a lot of guys play both, play a lot of the same lineups in both, which is great. So as you mentioned, I think this is this year 18, if I'm correct, right? I think Greg said it was year 18. So basically we've had it the entire time except for the first year, it sounds like, because I think this is our 19th year of the NFFC. You guys have been around the whole time. I've obviously not been around the whole time, but was a player before I actually joined on. So I used to play in this contest, and I used to buy three. Three was kind of my number that I bought. I it was what I could afford at the time. $600 was, not huge, but enough to get skin in the game. So I thought three. I think every year is kind of unique. Even this year, I don't know who's going to make the Super Bowl. I mean, I think I know, but I think in the AFC, I think it's between the top three seeds, and I think the Chiefs. If I gun to my head, if you told me I only could pick one, I'm going to say the Chiefs, just because I think they have the easiest road for sure. Right? They don't have to go through the semis. They don't have to play Cincy or Buffalo at this point. So just by that, they're going to have a little bit easier road. But so one thing I do want to say about this contest, even though that it's in its 18th year, this is only the third year that that the NFL playoffs have been expanded, right? Expanded in the COVID year. They went to 14 teams. Right. So what that did to this contest is now you actually have to fade two teams, right? We have 12 lineup spots, quarterback, 3 running backs, 4 receivers or tight ends, same thing. You get a flex, and then you get a team defense, and you get a team kicker. Before, there were 12 playoff teams, 2 teams in each league would get a bye. So you'd have 4 guys that didn't play that first week, right? You'd get zeros because you had to have them on your team. You had to have one guy from each team. and they just started out week 2 at their 2x multiplier, just like anybody else that would have played week 1 goes 1x, then 2x, and 3x, 4x for as long as they stay. Now, since there's 14 teams, you are fading 2 guys. So you're going to use, there's 2 teams you're not going to have anybody on. Which I think has added a huge element of strategy, because these first round picks do matter. I mean, we were talking last night on the Sirius show, like you're going to use Tyler Lockett, I'm going to use Tyreek Hill. That can matter down the line. If your guy Tyler Lockett puts up 25 and Hill puts up 6, you're ahead of me, right? Even if they both lose, you got a 19-point gap on me. If we had the same stuff the rest of the way, right? There's no way I could beat you. So what it does is made that first round a lot more important, in my opinion, which I think is great. And also at the same time, we used to have 4 running backs and no flex, right? So just the way the game has been moving, we knocked that down to 3 running backs, added the flex, so it allows you to use either a running back or wide receiver or a tight end. I think it also adds an element of strategy. So we did that in 2020. Both of those lined up at the same time. So moving forward, I think it's just made this game great. Anything else I'm forgetting there?
No, I don't think so. I'm going to pop my lineup here up in the internal contest just so people can see how it looks. So that's it right there. That's just for the internal contest that I'm running, just so people can kind of take a look at it and see how I'm setting it up for our internal contest there.
Right. Why don't you just click on Stefon Diggs there, just to show when you click on Diggs, the green circle, that would allow you to change him out with, if you see over on the right, see if you just saw what happened there. Now it allows Tom to switch guys up. I just wanted people to see the functionality of how that works there. So
right.
Okay. I think that's
so I could move other guys in and out of there. If you can see me, can you see me with the arrow there doing all that?
Yep, we can see him moving around.
Okay. All right. So yeah, that's how that works. That's just my lineup for this coming week. I just want people to kind of look. That's how the set lineup page looks there. So I'm not going to keep this up the whole time.
No. I think we'll go over our lineups so we can both talk our lineups. But I think this is a great time to inform people that each player will lock at the start of their game time, right? So the first game we have on Saturday, at basically 3:30 Central, 4:30 Eastern, whatever time it is there, give or take a few minutes. The guys from San Francisco and Seattle will lock. So if they're in your lineup, they're going to lock. If you have any San Francisco or Seattle guys in your lineup, you will not be able to move them in at that point. So once every game starts, those two, players from those 2 teams are locked in or out. So keep in mind, there's 6 different start times. Nobody plays at the same time. Prior, a few years ago, I think we had it where it just everything locked.
Everybody
locked on the first game, and we did away with that just because stuff can come up now because now there's a Saturday afternoon game all the way to Monday night. Stuff can happen to guys Monday night, right? So it's just a better way to do it. And here's the thing about that is once a game starts, so after that kickoff, you'll be able to see the percentage owned of San Francisco 49ers and Seattle Seahawks guys. You won't be able to see ownership of any other games until those games start. So again, that's part of the strategy as well, trying to figure out, the ownership on guys and guys to fade. And do you want to play this guy? Is he too chalky? You won't know any of that until the games actually start.
So let's talk strategy, because again, like you said, there's 12 roster spots and 14 teams. So everybody's fading 2 teams in the opening round. And I really thought, and we had you on our show last night, the Sirius show with me and Greg. And so what we're going to do on the Sirius show every week, the 3 of us are setting lineups in the internal contest. So every week on the show, the 3 of us will talk about our lineups, how we're doing in the contest. We'll talk strategies, what we're doing, so forth. And I honestly thought all 3 of us would be in agreement on one of the teams we'd be fading. Turns out I'm the only one thinking that this was the team we're all going to fade. So let's talk about this. I really thought we'd all be fading the Dolphins because Noah Tua Tagovailoa, they're going to get destroyed by Buffalo. I think
I agree.
Most people agree. I don't know what the spread's up to right now. I think it's 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, it's 2 TDs.
But you and Greg are both starting Tyreek Hill. I originally had Tyreek in my lineup, took him out without Tua, put in Tyler Lockett. Instead, he's had 2 good games against San Francisco. I think 49ers are winning easily, but Lockett has had 2 good games against the 49ers. I think you're going to have to throw it a lot. So that was my reasoning. Plus, Tyreek's a little banged up right now. So let's talk about fading, because I don't think there's an easy fade other than possibly Miami. So let's talk about that. Who should people be fading in week 1?
Well, I mean, it depends on your take on fading. When you're saying fading, I'm saying I need to lose certain guys, but I want these guys to have big games, right? I think that's kind of what you're
Yeah.
getting at as well. And I have no problem with you saying Lockett versus my
Oh, you kind of
Tyreek
froze
Hill.
there, Derek.
Oh, sorry.
All right, so oh, I might have froze.
Yeah,
Are you back?
I'm back. You're back. All right. I think we're okay.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
No, I agree. Yeah, your point is right. So the point is you're going to lose this guy, right? So you
You're
want to
hoping
get maximum
you're
points.
kind of hoping to. Here's the thing.
Right.
Here's the thing with my thinking here. Um, Again, I have no problem with someone using Lockett over a Tyreek or using Tucker at kicker versus someone else. Again, actually, this is one year. I'll talk about my kicker strategy a little bit later. But in a normal year, yeah, a lot of times you want the kicker to be replaced, and because you don't want to have to rely on a kicker at 2x sometimes. But I think this is kind of a weird year, so I'm going to try different things. But with Lockett and Hill, my point went on. Both of them could obviously go off. Both of them could have clunkers. To me, it's like I just don't. That first game, I believe San Francisco is going to crush them. Lockett has done fine against them both games. Metcalf has not done as well. To me, it's just I don't want to take a clunker in that very first game and feel bad, and that's just probably a personal decision. I also think Tyreek is fine. I mean, he was back. He was actually out being the punt returner on right at the end of the game. There, he didn't actually return the punt, but I think he's going to be fine. And to me, it's just like Tyreek Hill. They have to do everything to get him the ball to try and win that game. I understand Buffalo's pass defense could be great. Tre'Davious White could be on him. This game could be 40-0. Dolphins could be chasing all day. I get it. To me, it's just like. I feel like I would pick the wrong guy in the Seattle game. I wouldn't use Walker at all. I don't think you use Walker at all. You can't. I mean, you can. It's contrarian play. I wouldn't do it against 49ers. And I think there's a very small but very good running back pool to use in this contest to start with. So I don't want to waste it on Kenneth Walker. So again, Hill is just my gut call because if Miami happens to win that game, which honestly I don't think they will, but I actually think they would have a better chance than actually Seattle at this point. I just think San Francisco is going to smush them. And the Bills, for whatever reason, sometimes have played down to teams lately. So if for whatever reason Miami happens to win that game, Tyreek almost has to crush. Right, so I get a crush game from Tyreek, and then obviously I'm going to keep him for week 2. Even though my plans might have been to have Buffalo, and maybe I had Allen as my quarterback because I'm thinking they're going to Super Bowl. At that point, you can in our game take Tyreek Hill out. Week 2 if you think the Dolphins are going to lose, you want to build a different strategy. But at that point, you're kind of locked into Tyreek Hill because you don't. 99.9% of the times you do not want to take a guy out that's multiplied, right? You're just shooting yourself in the foot doing that. So can you do it? Yes. Should you do it? No. So that fading to me is kind of getting back to your question is I just don't want anything to do with Baltimore. Justin Tucker is my favorite kicker in the world. You know that. He's the best kicker to ever walk this planet. I'm going to do something a little different, I think, with my kicker this year where I just don't want anything to do with Baltimore. In a normal year, Tucker would probably be my guy. 8. If I had 9 teams, he'd probably be my kicker on 8 of them. It's just a different feel I have this year.
Yeah, I mean, my feel, I just think the Dolphins are going to get squashed. I just don't have any faith in them at all without Tua. So I'm avoiding it.
And here's the thing.
Entirely right.
Here's the thing.
Tyreek could go off.
Here's the thing. Like you could get a bigger game from Lockett versus my Tyreek. It could matter, but at the end of the day, with everything else we do and anything else you do later with 2x, 3x, 4x, it may not matter that much. And now in a field of 2,000, it could matter. So you do actually want those guys. You want to have those guys that you lose because their teams lose. You want to have guys that have had the most points. That's the goal. But there's ways to get around it later.
I honestly could, and I'm probably not because we've already set the lineups for the show, and I feel like it's kind of backing out of that. I honestly could go Barkley over Lockett if I wanted to.
Right, and
because we already set the lineups on the show, I feel like it'd be kind of a bad way to do it at this point.
Yeah.
But
you don't
that would be
that. I have Barkley, you have Lockett. Just let's leave it and let's see how it plays.
Yeah, because we've already announced the lineups publicly. I don't want to do that, but honestly, if we hadn't done that, that's probably the way I would go. because I'd be thinking about this all weekend. And if I had a lot of money at stake at this, that's probably the way I'd go. I don't think the Giants are going to win. I think they could, but that's probably the way I would go after thinking about it for like the whole week. That's probably the way I'd go.
Barkley's going to be heavy chalk. He's going to be 70% owned or more, in my opinion. And the reason for that is actually pretty simple. Again, there's not a ton of running backs that I would consider using. I think it's probably 5 or 6 at the most. Barkley's certainly there, and they're going to need Barkley to play well in that game. And then if they win their next game, they're still going to be relying on Barkley. That offense basically flows through Barkley. I know Jones has done some stuff, but to me, it's still, if winning, it's because if they beat the Vikings, find pressured Cousins enough, and then Barkley probably played well. So again, and just the way I'm setting up even my internal lineup, you and I are both using the same strategy there. We'll talk about it when we short lineups, but running back. So if Barkley happens to get through, Barkley's in my flex for our internal content, which again, this is a great point that we can talk to our customers about. Whoever you have in your flex for week 1, whether it's a wide receiver, a tight end, or a running back, you can move them week 2 to running back or wide receiver, tight end if you need to, right? So let's say you have your 3 running backs now, you have ETN and Eckler, you're going to lose one of them because one of them is going to lose that game. And Barkley and the Giants beat the Vikings, you can move Barkley up to running back and then have that flex spot for a wide receiver if you want the next week, or another running, whatever. So it gives you a little bit of flexibility there.
I already know my week 2 running back, so I know I'm losing one of those guys. I already know who I'm plugging in next week, so I already got that plan. If I wanted to get cute at wide receiver instead of Lockett, I could go Darius Slayton. I could get real cute there against your Vikings because they're terrible against pass. So
they are very bad against the pass. And Barkley's part of the passing game too is another thing there. So let's kind of let me you and I are in the chat. Everyone knows we're always in the chat lobby. Me, you, or Brian, always in there. Here's a lot of the questions I've been getting that I've been seeing asking about the contest. I think it's important to point out. First, let me say a bit of strategy, and I have some stuff to back this up later that we'll talk about between Stafford and Kupp, and even back as far as the year that the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. I truly believe there's 14 teams in the playoffs. I truly believe that 6 of them, if any one of these 6 makes the Super Bowl, you have to to win the overall contest, not our internal one, but to win the overall contest, 2,000 teams or so, right? 1,500 to 2,000 teams. You will have to have their quarterback locked in at 4X because the offense just flows through them. Basically, everything happens because of them. Most of the teams would have to play their game in the Super Bowl. 2 of them would have buys, so it would only technically be their 3rd game. But honestly, if you believe that the Chiefs, the Bills, the Bengals, the Eagles are going to the Super Bowl, you absolutely need to have that quarterback locked in at 4X. There's just no way of getting around it, and I'll show you why later. And the other 2 teams one is a long shot in the Bucs, but if the Bucs actually made a run to the Super Bowl, you need to have Tom Brady locked in at 4X to win. There's just not another path for any of the other Bucs the way they play. And the same thing of Geno Smith in Seattle, but they're the longest of long shots, so I kind of throw that one out. But I would say if you believe Kansas City, Buffalo, the Bengals, or the Eagles are going to be in the playoffs, if you do not lock in their quarterback in week 1, so you have them 4X in the Super Bowl, you will not win. It's less than probably 0.0001% chance. I'm saying that now, and I'll back it up, and I'll show you why in a little bit, but that's a strategy I believe. Now, I'm not the be-all say-all. I know that for a fact, but I do a lot of research on this contest because it's my favorite one. So having said that, here's a question that I get. And so people, again, I'm going to bring this up. Now that it's 14 teams, you have to fade 2. People do not like taking zeros right away, right? Because of the bye weeks, they just figure they want to get points. Here's what I'm going to tell you. I just mentioned those 4 quarterbacks. So Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen average right around 30 points per game this year in NFC contest, right? Okay, about 30. It's fine. Let's just say it's 30. So people ask me if I don't want to take a Chief or a Eagle in week 1, can I pick 2 of them up so that they're 3X in the Super Bowl? And I say, yes, you can. You can absolutely do that. They will be 3X in the Super Bowl. But if you actually are picking 2 of them up in week 2, you're basically saying you're thinking they're going to get to the Super Bowl. and you don't want to not have a 4X guy in the Super Bowl. You're not going to win. The multiplier, that's the whole point of the multiplier. You need to have your bracket, if you will, your playoff pool figured out beforehand. It's, again, like I said last night, you have to be proactionary, not reactionary, because reactionary is not going to get it done 99.9% of the time, because there's already people being proactionary and they've got their lineup set. So let's just do this real quick. Tom, I'm going to make you even do some live math. It won't be that hard, but I'm going to make you do some live right now. So let's just say, for instance, I believe the Chiefs are going to make the Super Bowl, which I do, but let's just say I do, but I don't want to use Patrick Mahomes in week 1 because he's not going to play, and I don't want that 0. So I'm going to use Trevor Lawrence instead, okay? I think Trevor Lawrence is going to have a decently big game. I think the Chargers still might win, but I think Trevor Lawrence is going to put up, say, 25 or 30 points, okay? So I'm going to use Trevor Lawrence, and then let's say the Chargers win. So Trevor Lawrence is done. My quarterback spot, I now have a quarterback spot open, right? I can put anyone in there. Now I'm going to grab Mahomes. So in week 2, I get Patrick Mahomes at what? 1x? Week 3, I get him at what? 2x? In week 3, week 4, the Super Bowl, I would get him at 3x. So now I've got Patrick Mahomes I have Trevor Lawrence week 1 at 1x. I have Patrick Mahomes at 1x, 2x, then 3x. So basically, I have 7x, if you will, right? 7. I got a 1, a 1, a 2, and a 3. That adds up to 7. 1, 1, 2, 3. Now, I guess this isn't perfectly symmetrical. It's not 30 points per. But for safety, to do this. So now let's say I take Patrick Mahomes. I think the Chiefs will go to the Super Bowl, and I take Patrick Mahomes week 1, my quarterback. I'm going to get a 0 in week 1. I know that. I'm getting 0. But then I have 2x, 4x, which is basically 9x, okay? So you can already see where I'm going with this. So let's just say you're the guy that goes Lawrence into Mahomes. I'm the guy that goes Mahomes the whole time. But they all score exactly 30 points, right? Lawrence scores 30, then Mahomes scores 30, 30, 30. You're going to get 30 from Lawrence, 60 from Mahomes, 90 from Mahomes, 30 from Mahomes, 60 from Mahomes, 90 from Mahomes. I'm going to get 0 from Mahomes, 60 from Mahomes, 90 from Mahomes, and 120 from Mahomes against you in the same exact slot right there. So you have a 30-point Trevor Lawrence and a 30-point week 1 Mahomes going up against my week 4 where I get 120. Our 90s and our 60s and our 90s cancel out. They're just different weeks. You're down 60 points at that point. You cannot catch me. It's just and that's being generous. I mean, thinking it's you can use any. You don't have to use Lawrence. You can just say you're down to me 90 points. You cannot get a week 1 quarterback to score 90 points. A 400-yard, 5-touchdown game from a quarterback in NFC scoring is only 50. Think of how many times that actually happens. It doesn't happen a lot. Patrick Mahomes does it once in a while. But so that's my theory on people asking, I'm going to start a quarterback and then I'm going to move to Mahomes or Hurts, even in this case, right? You can, if you believe those teams are going to the Super Bowl, you absolutely have to take those quarterbacks round 1 and eat the zeros. Otherwise, you're done because there's going to be plenty of guys that are doing that and you just cannot compete. You cannot make up that gap.
Yeah, it's the simple thing is, if you think there are 2 teams that are making it to the Super Bowl, you want those guys in week 1. I mean, yes, it's a 0, but you want those guys because ultimately you think they're getting to the Super Bowl and you want them at 4x. You don't want to sacrifice the 4x. That's
right,
the bottom
exactly.
line.
You cannot sacrifice a 4x.
In this contest are the multipliers. So you don't want to get to the Super Bowl and be looking at your live scoring and not seeing anybody on there that says 4x.
Right.
Okay? That's it. That's all we want to tell you is when we get to the Super Bowl, whenever that is, it's in Phoenix. I know that.
It is.
I don't know the date, but when you're looking at your live scoring, you want to see 4x on there. You don't want to sacrifice anything that says 4x on your live scoring. Okay, folks? That's what you have to understand.
Yes, and here's a case in point. Another great thing to talk about. When I just said you have to have the quarterbacks, I only said it's on those 4 teams because I don't believe there's another pathway for anybody else on one of those 4 teams after 3 or 4 games to outscore their quarterback. It's not, or to even come close enough where it's going to work. It's what Chief would, even as good as Travis Kelce is, or even as good as AJ Brown might be, or even as good as Stephon Diggs is, there's too much other stuff going on. I mean, all it takes is, a few for Mahomes, a pass to McKinnon, touchdown pass to McKinnon, and one to Justin Watson, one to anybody else. There's so many guys there that everything flows through Mahomes. Mahomes could, all four of those quarterbacks score rushing TDs. Burrow, same thing. As good as Jamar Chase is, and I love Jamar Chase, at some point, he's just not going to be the 4. You don't want 4X against 3X. Now, keep in mind, there are, like we talked about last night, there are maybe 1 or 2 guys in the situation where you think the 4X, where you don't need to necessarily have the quarterback. And both of us talked about last night how it could be Christian McCaffrey, which I agree with. Yeah. And let me say, I don't know that there's any other team. Again, the Vikings, I'd love to see a Super Bowl run. I don't see it coming. Is there a path? I didn't see a path for Justin Jefferson to do exactly kind of what Cooper Kupp did last year. I just think there's too many other pieces on the Vikings to do that. You have Hawkinson, you have Thielen, who still scores touchdowns, you have KJ Osborne, you have Delvin Cook. So as great as Justin Jefferson is, if the Vikings went to the Super Bowl in this contest, I would rather have Kirk Cousins, because there's just too many other options. And I just want to point this out, what happened. So we were talking about McCaffrey, who could do that, because a lot of San Francisco stuff kind of funnels through McCaffrey, right? He's catching passes. He's, he runs in TDs. Now, again, does Elijah Mitchell get in the way there? We don't know. But you can see a pathway where McCaffrey, they just lean on McCaffrey, and he's a big-time scorer, just like Cooper Kupp was last year. Let me talk real quick. Last year's winning team had, all the top teams had Kupp at 4X and Stafford at 3X and Burrow at 4X, everyone that finished at the top, the winning team. Here's why. Matthew Stafford in the playoffs had 98 completions, 1,188 yards, 9 TD passes. He did run for 40 yards and score 2 rushing TDs. They were in the first week and the first 2 weeks. So a guy having a 3X, Stafford didn't even get one of the rushing touchdowns. But here's what Cooper Kupp did. Cooper Kupp in those 4 games had 33 catches, 478 yards, and 6 touchdowns. So basically, he had 34% of Stafford's receptions, 40% of Stafford's yards, and 67% of the touchdowns that Matthew Stafford threw. Yeah. That is why it was last year it worked to have Kupp and not Stafford of the winning Super Bowl team. However, I cannot, again, other than McCaffrey, I cannot see anyone cutting into the production of their quarterback like that. So I just don't think there's a pathway for the teams that I believe that actually have a chance to win the Super Bowl, that you can use anybody except those 4 quarterbacks.
I think McCaffrey is, of anyone that's got a shot at being this year's Cup, it's McCaffrey, because Brock Purdy isn't on the level of Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, Hurts. So, and even McCaffrey has got Debo back.
Yeah,
and Debo absolutely could steal a lot of that thunder.
Yeah.
So, but I do think of anyone who could be this year's Cup, it's McCaffrey.
I think the second guy I would kind of put there, just based on how he's used, is Austin Eckler. I just don't see the Chargers making that run. So I don't
either. I don't think they get out of this week.
Yeah.
I'm shocked. I'm shocked that they're favored, especially if Mike Williams doesn't play. I mean, I don't know how they're favored to go. And I didn't think Jacksonville played that well last week, but I mean, we're diverting from the strategy of the contest, but
that's fine.
I don't know how they're favored going into Jacksonville personally. Yeah. But Eckler could certainly, if they for some reason got this far. But again, then you still got Herbert throwing to Keenan Allen.
Yeah, sure.
Assuming Williams is back. But Eckler could certainly do it if for some reason they made a magical run.
Yep. But I honestly, other than that, I don't think even if Jacksonville made some type of magical run, I don't think ETN could do it. They just don't throw to him enough. Again, Jefferson could, I suppose, but I just think that it's too spread out there. There's just, there was Kupp and a little bit of OBJ last year, right, for Stafford in the playoffs, but that was it. There was nobody else. So I can't think of anybody else. So again, I'm not the be all, say all, end all, but I've kind of nailed this down to looking at what you need to do. But again, first, most important thing is, who do you think is going to play in the Super Bowl? Because you need to build backwards from that for sure.
Well, I guess then it comes down to, okay, a lot of people are going to have multiple entries, and you certainly don't need to have multiple entries. The guy who won it last year had one entry.
Mm-hmm.
in the big contest. Joshua Dombrowski
Yep.
won the big contest with 1 entry.
Yep.
So you don't have to have 30, 40 entries or 10, 20, whatever. You can do with 1 entry. So let's say you're playing 1 entry or minimal entries. So here's a question for you. How contrarian do you want to get with a single entry or minimal entries? Because obviously, you know, the top guys are going to be chalky guys, right? Burrow, you know, Mahomes, Hurts in the NFC is going to be super contrarian. So super chalky, excuse me.
Yeah.
So how contrarian do you want to get if you're not playing, numerous entries, right? Because you've got to stand out a little bit.
Yeah, and I think in that case scenario, if you're playing 1 bullet, I think first you got to nail who's going to the Super Bowl. You have to nail that. So let's assume you nail that. Then I think you have to assume you have to assume that you're going to nail it. I should say is a better way to say it. Then I think you don't want to get overly cute in this year, but honestly, I think the running back pool is so small that it actually helps you not get too cute. So again, to me, this would come down to a first couple decisions, maybe in the first week, maybe like me and you were talking, Hill or Lockett or a Barkley, whatever. I think you gotta get who you feel right there, and then I think you probably need to make 1 or 2 good decisions in the second round where a team that you think is going to get through to the conference championship that other people maybe aren't hitting, and you just have a leg up there. You get an extra game. So let's for some reason say you think that the Vikings win the first game, and you're one of those guys that think they can go to San Francisco possibly and upset the Niners. Well, a lot of people are going to have the Niners lined up to go to the Super Bowl. They're my favorite in the NFC, in the NFC right now. But if you're one of those people that think the Vikings go up there and got a shot, so maybe you have a Jefferson to start with, and then instead of taking a second 49er because you think they're going to go to the conference final, you take a Dalvin Cook or a TJ Hawkinson or an Osborne or something like that. So I think you do something like that, and then I think you just maybe make a different play on a team that maybe everyone thinks is going. Let's say the Chiefs, for example. Instead of, if you have Mahomes on a slot, maybe instead of a Kelsey, which is going to be a chalky second week play, and he'll be a first week play as well, but a very chalky second week play for people that have Mahomes. Maybe you switch to a McCole Hardman or a Jerick McKinnon or a Kadarius Toney or something like that other people aren't going to play. That is enough to separate you if you hit on everything else. Because again, there's going to be a lot of chalk, and rightfully so. I mean, good players come up big in the playoffs. There's a reason.
I will say this. Now, obviously, there's a difference between our contest, our internal one, and the big contest. But sometimes playing the chalk pays off.
Oh, yeah.
I finished second in our internal contest. I would have won it if I played Beckham, who was the chalk play, right? Before he got hurt. I mean, he was putting up that big game.
After you had already had Cup at 4X. and
Right. But I didn't play Beckham because I assumed everybody else was going to play him, which was the case. Yeah. Everybody picked him up and played him. And so I got cute. So I went in another direction, and I picked up, I forget who I picked up, but it was somebody that nobody else played.
Van Jefferson.
But had I just picked up Beckham, I would have had enough points to win. So sometimes you outsmart yourself trying to be contrarian. Sometimes the chalky play is the right play.
That's the beauty of this contest. There's so many different angles and so many things you got to consider. That's why it's so fun. It's awesome.
Yeah. So, all right. So we've kind of talked about, the fading thing and which I agree with you. It's not so much maybe about fading so much as it is about accumulating points. And again, the one thing I do want to stress to people, don't get hung up on where you are in the standings after week 1. Okay. No. Don't even worry about it. Honestly, you can look at the standings this weekend for fun, but if your team's buried, don't worry about it because the contest does not start until week 2 when the multipliers kick in.
Here's what I will say. If you have the 2 teams that you think are going to go to the Super Bowl and both their quarterbacks are playing this weekend and you have them in your lineup, you do want to be up top. because that's what you're riding in. That's
Yeah.
what you're, other than that, if you, say you have a Mahomes or a Hurts you're not going to be up top because there's going to be enough people that just don't play those guys and play guys right away. You're going to be buried at the beginning, but that's not, like you said, that's not when it starts. Technically it starts week 2. You need to make some solid decisions week 1, but it really, really starts in week 2.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think the contest begins in week 2 because that's when the fun starts. Because again, as I tell people, the key is the multipliers. That's
Yes, no
what you've
question.
got to be cognizant of. That you got to be conscious of, and that's when the contest really starts. That's when the fun starts. Is when those multipliers kick in. So, we're going to talk about, I think, wild card plays, maybe some guys that stood
Let's
out
do
to
our
you,
internal
maybe
lineup. Let's do
outside.
our internal lineups first, and
You want to look at the internal
let's just
lineups?
look at you tell people kind of what we're doing, what we're thinking, and I'll tell them why.
All right.
And then
So,
we can.
all right. So this is what I'm going with week 1. I guess I can't make any changes to it. I've been hemming and hawing over a couple of spots. But all right. So for week 1, I'm going to start with Joe Burrow and Jalen Hurts at QB. I do think the Bengals are the best team in the AFC. It's tight, obviously, with those top 3 teams.
Yep.
But I'm going to go with Burrow over Allen and Mahomes. So Burrow and Hurts. I'm not entirely confident in the Eagles. They're actually not my Super Bowl pick, but I'm going to go with Hurts at QB. Actually, I think that the 49ers might be the best team. So I got McCaffrey. It's either the Eagles or the 49ers. So I think one of them is going to be my 4X play. So McCaffrey at running back, and then Etienne and Eckler. So I'll get one of those running backs coming out of that game on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
And then the wide receiver tight end plays are Stephon Diggs, Justin Jefferson, Travis Kelce is my chief, and CeeDee Lamb. And then I went Tyler Lockett, who had a couple of good games against 49ers. I think they're going to have to throw it a lot, Seattle. And then the Ravens team kicker, and then the Buccaneers on Monday night team defense. So that's what I'm going with in our internal contest.
Right. And I will tell you mine right now. And again, this is for it's going to be 15, maybe 15 to 18 teams. So this is not what I would do if I'm playing in the NFFC overall ones where I have to beat 2,000 teams. This lineup that I'm going to say right now allows me a few outs against Tom and the rest of the crew in the company. So I'm going to go with Patrick Mahomes. I do believe the Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl, but I feel like maybe that's like 55%, and I think Buffalo is probably 35%, and I think the Bengals are like 10%. That's how I'm kind of leaning. I'm actually going to use Kirk Cousins in my second QB slot. And the reason I'm doing that here, I do not believe the Vikings are going to the Super Bowl. The San Francisco is my NFC favorite at this point. However, this does give me a few outs in this smaller tournament. If the Vikings lose game 1, I'm going right to Brock Purdy to switch. If the Vikings happen to win a game, I'm going to leave Cousins in and pivot on my second San Francisco guy, and I'll ride Cousins until he's done. If the Vikings happen to make some Cinderella run, which I pray they do, then I've got Cousins and I have a really fun time. But my running backs are the exact same as Tom's, McCaffrey, Eckler, and Etienne, and we both know that we're losing a running back there, which is fine. I think both those guys have set up for nice games. I'm going to use my wide receivers spots are going to be Jamar Chase, Stephon Diggs, CeeDee Lamb. I'm using Tyreek Hill instead of Tommy Lockett. Like I said, we talked about at the top of the show, just a gut feeling there. My flex is going to be Barkley. Again, I talked early in the show too, why I'm using Barkley. If they happen to beat the Vikings, I'm going to lose Eckler, Etienne. Barkley will move up to a running back spot, and I'll fill that spot later with some receivers that I'm going to have to add in week 2 anyways. My team kicker, this is one of the things I'm looking at doing this year. I'm using the Eagles kicker as my kicker, and I get it. They don't play week 1, so he's going to be my kicker week 2 at 2X. I don't think the Eagles are going to the Super Bowl. I think it's San Francisco, and I have a really hard time trying to figure out the AJ Brown, Devonta Smith conundrum. And I also, based on this year's what I think is going to happen, I don't want to have to use a week 2 pick to actually put a kicker back in. I want my kicker in there, and when he loses, he loses. I don't know that I mean, obviously Philly's not going to lose this week, but they could get Dallas, they could get Tampa. I don't know that Tampa can beat them up there, but I think Dallas, if they get by the Bucks, which I don't even know if that'll happen, I think Dallas could give them a game up there. So and here's the thing, I'm not using Hurts in this lineup because I think San Francisco is my favorite. So here's my whole entire point. If I'm not using Hurts, I don't believe the Eagles are going to the play or to the Super Bowl. So I don't necessarily want Hurts. I'm not using him. I don't want an Eagle, a prominent Eagle spot, a quarterback, a running back, or a wide receiver spot wasted on an Eagle that I don't think is going that far. So that's why I'm pivoting to the Eagles team kicker. And then my defense, I'm just using the Bucks. If they get by Dallas, maybe they did something. The defense is an easy position. I have no problem replacing my defense in week 2. I don't want to do it with my kicker. And people, aren't they the same thing points wise? Yes, they are. Technically, they don't average a lot of points. But the way this is playing out, I see a certain path for certain teams. So I think it's okay. I'm doing it so that's my strategy.
All right, so that's what we'll be doing in the internal contest. And again, folks, these spots are selling out rapidly. I'm looking at the numbers right now. We're nearing 1,200 signups right now in the big contest, nearing 1,550 signups in the mini. So these signups are pouring in right now. 2 days, about, I don't know, day and a half. I'm not going to do the math right now off the top of my head. But anyway,
43 hours left or so. 43 hours.
There you go. All right. Anyway, the contest will lock at the first game, which is 4:30 Eastern, 3:30 Central on Saturday. But like Darik said, the lineups lock at the start of their individual games. So only the lineups lock for the first game, that's San Francisco and Seattle on Saturday. Then every team lineups lock at the start of their games. So that's nice flexibility for everybody. So again, folks, if you haven't signed up yet, head on over to playnffc.com. Sign up for these contests, one or both. Sign up for either one, whatever you want to do. But I guarantee you, if you get into this contest, if you haven't done it yet, if you never played it before, you're going to love it. Like Darik said, it's his favorite. We can pick favorites. That's fine. Yeah. I've never played in this contest other than the internal one. So I love playing it in the internal. It is a great contest. So the multiplier format is really what makes it a lot of fun. So if you haven't played it yet,
it's
you
addicting.
Will love it. I make that promise.
It gets more
and
it gets more exciting each week. That's the amazing thing. Like it's so fun to set your initial lineup. I had 100 iterations. I kind of settled on that one for the internal. Able to join our big one. I have like 10 sheets of pad by 6 or whatever, or something, 9. I don't know what I would do, but I would definitely play it. So it's addicting. It is such a fun format, and you're so involved with it. That's the beauty. You have so many choices, so many things that can happen. You have the ability to swap guys in and out. Again, one thing we didn't mention, which I think people realize, if you do have someone in your lineup, week 1, you take them out, and then for some reason want to put them back in week 3, their multiplier is gone. You don't have that multiplier. It's back to 1. So don't. The only time you would ever want to take a guy with a multiplier out, in my opinion, is if he's hurt. Right, next week he's not going to play. Then you replace him, obviously. But other than that, there's very, very, very few times I would do it. It just doesn't make sense. Those multipliers are so huge. As Tom stated, it starts week 2. So once you have 2x multipliers on guys, you don't move them.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Thanks for bringing that up. So if you got a guy who has multipliers, you definitely don't ever want to drop them unless they're hurt. I'm trying to think. There wasn't Akers, I think, going into the Super. Yeah, Akers, I think, going into the Super Bowl last year. We weren't sure if he was going to play or not. He didn't play well. But yeah, I think people had him at like 3 times. They weren't sure if he's going to play last year, but he did play in the Super Bowl. So yeah, don't ever drop a guy with multipliers unless he absolutely isn't going to play, or you're just 100% sure he's going to put up 0, because you don't want to lose those multipliers. But those are the key. So yeah, again, folks, the other key points we want to make here: if there are players on teams that you think are going to be in the Super Bowl, get them into your week 1 lineup. Take the 0. It doesn't matter that they're going to put up 0 in week 1, because ultimately you think they're getting 4 times the points in the Super Bowl, and that's what you want to be seeing on your live scoring. So Any other final points we want to leave
I
them here
think
with tonight, Darik?
I think we covered pretty much everything. I don't think we missed anything. But let's I have a couple guys that I like to just consider like wild cards. Like let's throw a monkey wrench in at some point. And so I don't know if you have any. Let's start with the AFC. I just think a guy I love, partly because of my love for the Chiefs and Mahomes, but I think a guy that the Chiefs might unleash during the playoffs is Kadarius Toney. So as kind of a I would not use him as my 4X Chief. I'm not going to do that. But if you have Mahomes, the next logical play might be Kelsey or McKinnon, depending on how you think that sorts out. Pacheco's kind of a tough play in my book. I don't think you can really use Pacheco. Again, contrarian. But I think that the Chiefs are going to unleash Kadarius Toney in the playoffs. I just have this gut feeling. They brought him on board for a reason. And honestly, let's be honest, Juju has been okay, but he hasn't been great. Scantling is hit and miss. And then it's Justin Watson, Hardman. I mean, I feel like he's kind of taken over what they wanted Hardman to be before they got Toney. So I think that's a wild card for me in the AFC. Do you have anybody in the AFC?
Yeah, I mean, in the AFC would be James Cook. I mean, if you're going, because obviously the top two guys, obviously for the Bills, are going to be Allen and Diggs.
Yep.
They're going to be the high-owned guys. So if you don't have Allen or Diggs week 1, most people are going to go the other guy, right? Week 2, right? If you got Allen, you're going Diggs in week 2. So the contrarian play to me, if you don't have one of those guys in week 2, would be Cook, because I do think Cook is the guy who could be the emergence guy. I mean, ahead, I wouldn't go Singletary. I like Singletary, but if I'm looking elsewhere, right, it'd be Cook. It certainly wouldn't be Gabe Davis or Knox. It would be Cook. That would be my pick there in the AFC.
I like that.
And in the NFC, in the NFC, it'd be Debo, because I do think if there's somebody who could get fully unleashed now that he's healthy, and if you're going to make a run in San Francisco, it would be Debo.
The one guy I'll say starting out in San Francisco, I know you and I both are using McCaffrey, but I think a very contrarian play. I don't think a lot of people are going to start with Brock Purdy. And things can happen where he's just throwing TD passes. He can throw TD passes to McCaffrey as well. He's done that. So I don't think he'll be a very chalky play. My estimate would be he might be on 10 to 15% of rosters to start max, and maybe even that's too high. I think McCaffrey's going to be huge chalk. So I don't know how much Purdy is. I think there'll be some Kittle sprinkled in there. I don't know how much Debo will start. It'll be interesting to see that ownership. And then just on a whim and a prayer, kind of as a big prayer, I think you could Kirk Cousins as a quarterback. For some reason, if the Vikings make a run, will not be heavily owned at all. And again, there's just a lot of guys. I know it's Jefferson, but Hawkinson has come on since he's got there, and you still have Thielen and Osborne and throwing the ball to Cook. And so there's just maybe a sliver of chance you want to go there. I think that's pretty much it. Otherwise, I guess we could maybe talk about who we guess are going to be massive chalk guys, if that helps. I think it's.
I mean, I think it's going to be the top 3 quarterbacks in the AFC. And then I think McCaffrey is going to be the top guy in the NFC, even over Hurts. Because I think the 49ers are the hot team right now in the NFC, because Philly's had all their injuries and Hurts is still banged up. Sirianni came out and said it. Hurts is not 100% right now. And I mean, Hurts will certainly be high owned. He'll be chalky, but I think McCaffrey's going to be the chalkiest guy out of the NFC. And then Hurts, I think Lamb will be high owned. But I think McCaffrey's probably going to be the chalkiest guy out of the NFC right now. Okay. You know what? I do think maybe not this round, but round 2, I think Brock Purdy's going to be.
Yeah, he's a definite round 2 guy.
Jumping on Brock Purdy in round 2.
He's a round 2 guy for sure. My point was like to start. I don't think he's going to be that highly owned because of McCaffrey.
No, because I don't think anybody's going to want to go Purdy over McCaffrey. It's too risky.
So other NFC guys, I think that I actually think Lamb and Pollard are going to be kind of close. I think Lamb will have a little bit more, but I think you're going to see some guys trying to play the Tony Pollard card there. Also think Justin Jefferson is going to be massive chalk. He's going to be super chalk. He's going to be owned on pretty much a lot of teams. So I think those are the big NFC guys. AFC, I'll say, I think you're right. It's the 3 quarterbacks. I bet I probably look at it as Mahomes 55, Allen 40, and Burrow like something like 20 to 25, because some people are going to use 2 of them. I guarantee you some people will use 2 of them. Yeah. You don't want to use Allen and Burrow because they both can't play 3 games, right? They're going to lose to each other. So you're going to see Mahomes and Burrow or Allen and Burrow stacked on some teams. You're definitely going to see that. That's why those percentages are going to be over 100 when you combine them. Also, I think Jamar Chase. I would use Chase on any team. I'm not using Burrow. That's me. I think he's going to be owned. And I also think Austin Eckler. I think Austin Eckler might be the highest owned guy when we start week one. I just like the way it sets up. You and me both are using him as a play against ETN, but I think Eckler is going to be very, very highly owned.
Yep, I agree. All right, great stuff. So again, folks, these contests are both signups are pouring in. They're both going to sell out. So again, we got the main contest got a $150,000 grand prize. The minis got a $50,000 grand prize. You can sign up for one of them. You can sign up for both, whatever you want to do, at playnffc.com. We hope you enjoyed the insights and the strategies we were able to give you tonight. Darik, I want to thank you for hopping on this evening. So again, folks, playnffc.com. These postseason contests, guarantee you're going to like them. So thanks for joining us tonight. Have a great rest of your weekend, and good luck to everybody playing in the postseason contest this year.
Get in before they sell out. Get in.